once you stuck out such a swell.
Sing it to a liar, at a tea. Sing it to a liar, Sing it to a liar, at a tea. Or bound on Botany Bay.
Good afternoon, everyone. In our travels around Australia, we have found homeschooling has been absolutely booming, and we're delighted to be able to talk with someone today about their experiences. Who do we have here?
Hi, I am Emma Schneider, and I live in Mount Isa, so very, very outback Queensland, northwest region. It's a mining town, and yeah, we homeschool.
And Emma, what led up to the decision for you to homeschool?
That's a biggie, and I guess an important one as well. I am a radiographer, and my husband is as well. And we worked really, really hard during that COVID crisis up until the vaccine mandates came through. And then once that was forced down everyone's gullets, my husband and I refused. And so after living in our home for 7 years, and working here for that company for 7 years, they kicked us to the curb, asked us to leave our home 5 days before Christmas. And yeah, so complete change in lifestyle, complete, as in 180. But I really do have to say that despite all of that, I feel like we are stronger as a family, and as husband and wife, and we've got a baby boy now as well, and we love him so much. And homeschooling for the girls, honestly, is just, it's the best. And I can see it affecting them really, really well too, so yeah.
When you were first talking to me about homeschooling, I could not only see the girls being radiant, but you were radiant in the way you were talking about it. So it's really, it sounds like it's been a positive experience for you too.
Yeah, not all positive.
No.
But yeah, definitely is now. And looking back on it, this is our second year, so we're new at it. Yeah. And my girls are, I think, if you had them in the schooling system, they're quite young. So you probably prep or year one. I've got them at about a year 2, year 3 level at the moment on most things. But yeah, they're so happy, they're thriving. They got pulled out, like Eve was in kindergarten, and Nora, my darling Nora, she was in prep, and they'd just finished that year off. Hamish and I were struggling with the mandates, the vaccine mandates and stuff with our health profession, and then suddenly the mandates were introduced for teachers as well, the education. We didn't accept that. We couldn't. So as soon as the teachers' mandates came through, after what we went through, we're like, no, we're out. So we immediately pulled the girls out of that system and started teaching them at home, and that was huge. So with the drama of being pulled away from your profession, having your security, your livelihoods, your home taken away from you, completely stolen, and then to sort of delve into a homeschooling environment as well. Very, very overwhelming.
Lots going on.
Lots going on.
Did you have any concerns going into homeschooling?
Yes, yeah. FOMO. Fear of missing out. FOMO.
For the girls?
Yeah. Me as a parent, I was just worried that I wasn't going to be enough. And far out was I wrong. It's the opposite. It's just, they are thriving on it. Like just today they were out in a station and, feeding goats and harvesting vegetables and fruits out of a vegetable garden and learning how to cook that straight off the bat, and just all this stuff that they're just really, really thriving. You have days that are just so beautifully open like that, and to have the flexibility to be able to do that is just beautiful. And then you have other days where you're really into the academia side of it and English and maths and things, but to have that freedom to sort of mold your life and your family just around the circumstances that you're presented with is just perfect.
In meeting your girls, who are an absolute delight.
Oh, thank you.
I can see incredibly well socialised children, and I can see children who have a thirst and an interest in learning and a real natural curiosity about life and the world.
That's so good to hear.
And it's lovely. Yeah, it's a credit to you.
Thank you.
So how do you navigate? I know with homeschooling there's not a typical day. It doesn't follow the same structure as a traditional school. How do you navigate planning days or structures, or do you just go very organic?
This is definitely something that you have to find. Like if you're interested in doing homeschooling, you've got to find that for yourself. Everyone's different, and you know, God's made us all differently. We all have our different needs and wants, and I know some families that are very strict with what they do. They have to have these programs knotted out. They have to finish them, and they've got the tick boxes and the beautiful timetables, and that's amazing for them. And their kids thrive on that too. My kids aren't so strict with that. I'd call my homeschooling style eclectic, actually, honestly. It'd be more classical style, which means that you're sort of focusing on the English and the maths basics, but you're then, I say, also focusing on developing them as the character. So their strengths, they're focusing on what their likes and tastes are as well. So I'd add in actually a little bit of Charlotte Mason as well, because we are really into books, especially with the baby. So I'll be feeding the baby and I'll be reading out a classical book. At the moment we're almost finished Treasure Island, like the original Treasure Island. Yes, it's very old. So it's the way you read it out is very, I'm not going to say Shakespearean, but it's difficult, more difficult for them to understand. But that in its own right is a teaching lesson, because they'll stop me and go, "What's that word? What's tide, Mummy?" Next day we're completely focusing on tides, you know, like we're doing science experiments, we're watching videos, we're doing pictures of it, we're, you know, everything's about tide. We'll look at the moon, then it's something that's about space. Everything sort of steers towards what they like and what they love, and I found that they not only remember things more because of that, but they thrive on it, and they want to ask, they want to talk, they have that, I think they have that spark, but I'm hoping that I've honed that. But
and you don't just have the challenge of homeschooling, you have a little bubba as well. How do you navigate managing the needs of a little bubba and the girls?
When I was pregnant, I was like, how am I going to do this? Because that was the end of my first year. I didn't know, like I was really overwhelmed with the idea. The way I research and that is to have our own networks of homeschooling people as well. So mothers that have been through it, like 2-3 times before that with other kids, you know, bigger families than me that have done it again and again, and you kind of just sort of relax and realize, oh yeah, you can do that. For me, what I did was when the baby was awake and breastfeeding, like I said, I'd have a book open, whether that's history, so I've got core subjects for history. It's the story of the world is what we're doing for history, and that's starting in the ancient history period and stuff. So I'll read out what they have in that chapter. In the meantime, they'll sit there and they'll either colour the maps of that area of time, or they will colour a picture. For instance, just the other day they were learning about the 𝐸𝑚𝑚𝑎 kings, which is the middle kingdom of Egypt, and so they'll be colouring in jewellery that they've already seen on our laptops and stuff like that. They've seen the real jewellery, and then they get to colour that in while they're listening to the history story as I'm feeding the baby. I know that sounds juggly, but it's just a matter of here's some paper, you know, this is what you're doing. I'll read it out, feed the baby. When he's asleep, he's asleep. When he's awake and wants to play, he's got 2 siblings there playing with him while we're juggling all this other stuff. You have to let it flow. You can't stress too much about absolutely needing to finish everything, because you will have days in the future where it'll be a lot easier. And you know, it's just about relaxing into it and knowing that you've got it, you know, and because if you're stressed most of the time, then they're going to pick up on that, and they're not really going to learn as much if they're stressed or tense. So
And in looking around your room and your house, there is some beautiful examples of the kids' work, but also the resources that you found too. Where are some of your good go-to places for your resources?
buy swap sell all the way, homeschool groups, buy swap sell, so people will have those resources that they've finished themselves or that they weren't really happy with. I've spent many hours online researching different homeschooling programs and things like that to see what would suit our family more. And then all of a sudden, boop, someone would be like, hey, I'm selling this. It's secondhand. There's a little bit of a tear. It's only $20 compared to $120. Done.
Bargain.
Guess what we're doing? We're doing the story of the world, girls. It just, it happens that way. First year I did something called Simply Homeschool, and that was really good for me to start off with. So if you're starting off with your homeschooling, I would recommend that. It provided all of the subjects, and it gave you step by step, this today you can do this, this and this. You can select the subjects yourself, so it's not specifically geography. This is the age of your kid, this is what they're going to study. You could actually scroll through a whole bunch of different topics that might have geography involved, and maths, and science, and a bit of English, and it just sort of flows with the subjects that your kid actually would be interested in. That was very handy for me at the beginning. But then I had to go down south, and we stayed there for an unexpected amount of time, like it was about 6 months rather than 1 month. And so I was unexpectedly thrown in the deep end with not having those resources anymore. It's online, but I wasn't able to print out any pages anymore. I didn't have the books. So I then had to go very unschooling version to try that out with the girls. And that worked really well too. And my dad's a teacher by trade, and he saw the kids and went, nah, you are doing great. It's fine. It's okay. It's nice to have those reassurances as well, though.
Yeah. And a lot of people thinking about homeschooling are concerned because they think their children miss out on social opportunities. How have you navigated that, or what sort of social opportunities or engaging with other homeschoolers or groups have you found worked?
Again, I started with that FOMO, fear of missing out. That socialisation for Hamish and myself was a biggie. But far out, I mean, they are more than happy to talk with anyone, any age now. It's beautiful to see. They'll see someone who's 90 on the streets and they'll still stop and ask them how their day is, or, what's that hat you're wearing? Something simple like that. And you see the spark in that person's eyes of that this little girl's really genuinely interested in me. They've got friends that are 4 or 5 years older than them. They've got friends that are 1 year old and 2 year old, and the age barrier is not there anymore. The school has just restricted you to just wanting friends in your age. If you're 5 years old, you've got to only have a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old friend. That's it. You're restricted into your classrooms, and then when you're playing in the playgrounds, you're separated. There's separate playgrounds for these kids. Nora now has friends all over the spot, and it's just beautiful. Extracurricular activity doesn't change. We've got athletics clubs. Our church is huge. Girls Brigade. We've got Fun Time. They help with another homeschooling family that have kids their age as well. They go and they do a Fun Time. And the Fun Time is for playgroup sort of age kids and stuff, but because of that they've then been encouraged to do drama and to put on plays and puppet shows and all sorts of things for those kids. So that's them. I'm like, if you want to do that, that's fine. Then you need to do it yourself. Take the initiative. You can choreograph it. You can direct it. You can act in it if you want to, and even that stuff, you know, on a small scale is great. Homeschooling itself, there's groups out there. We've got a massive group. We're living in the middle of nowhere, and there's a massive group. There's about 20 odd families. I'd say in that there'd maybe be 13 active families, and in each of that, every single week we get together and group and socialise at different parks, playgrounds, nature. You know, let's go to the lake, let's go kayaking, let's go to a park, let's go to a fun park, you know, and then you can expand off that too. And then there is, on top of that, there's homeschool club. So like, you know, like there's heaps of stuff, and they are not missing out. Look, they're learning the difference between capacity and volume, atoms, electrons and current, the different circuitry. We've got insulator versus conductor, you know, like there's all this stuff that sort of you go through as a group of people as well that they learn. They are not missing out socially. In fact, I think that they are more social than kids their age, because other kids sort of just shut down and, you know, or no, that kid's too young for me, it's not cool enough, or that kid's too old, or, you know, that kind of thing. They don't have that. There's no barrier there, and I love that about them. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Emma. It's really clear that your love of life and learning is flowing through you down to your children in a beautiful way. Thank you for sharing with the Deplorables today in our search for humanity.
Thank you very much. Thank you for interviewing.